Okay, so this is fairly exciting for me. I love the NES. I have my high def NES right here that I recently bought this one from a friend of the channel. Appreciate it. You know who you are. Really awesome. So this has HDMI, but it's a fairly pricey system because this mod, I don't think it's being produced anymore. It gives you, HDMI. And these top loaders are, they always go for a lot when they're HDMI modded. But yeah, I love this. I love this. But this is not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about is this little fella right here. This is the AV Famicom. I mean, you may be aware of this, but there's something special about this one. This is RGB modded. I'm sure plenty of you guys out there have heard of, the RGB mods for these retro consoles. But what I thought was interesting is I bought this off of AliExpress, and it was, like, in my opinion, cheap. It was like $145. Actually, it was a little less than that for me. So they always have like coupons and stuff on listings. It was $158, but then I got $15 off. So it was, what, $143? But yeah, they have this thing called the Lava RGB mod. So this has an RGB mod in it. So that's obviously going to be better than just normal composite, right? Because this, you have the AV out. So you would put in, the Nintendo multi-out, plug it into your TV with, the little yellow, white, red cables. And you just got composite. Doesn't look that great, but hey, back in the day, it was fine. And that's all you could really do with this. But with this mod, now we can do component, you got RGB. So I want to check this out. We're going to open this up because for me, I think that's an unbelievable price for an RGB modded system. Plays Famicom cartridges, but I don't have any Famicom cartridges. You can always get one of these, converters to take NES carts and play them on the Famicom. You just simply, I believe on here it'll show like NES front, so you'd make sure the NES front was that way. And then it says Famicom front, NES back, and then you plug it in. That's pretty much it. Yeah, the NES cart's going to be facing this way instead of the other way like it normally would on a, our top loader, but it plays fine. Plays fine. Use the EverDrive or normal carts, whatever, or just buy, Famicom carts, right? So we'll test that out. But what I'm going to do is I don't have component cables. This can use, since it has the RGB mod, you could use S-Video, component, you could use, composite AV cables. What I'm going to use is the Rad2X here, which gives me HDMI out. With the Rad2X, it gives you, for Nintendo consoles that uses the Nintendo multi-out, it gives you RGB or composite out, just depending on, what the system is. For the AV Famicom, if it's not modded, this will line double composite. But since this is RGB modded, we have RGB mode, so it'll, line double and give us RGB, so 480p. So it should look pretty good. I've already been messing with it, and I'm fairly impressed. We're going to open this up. I've been talking about this on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, posting some pictures. I talked about it when I first discovered this on AliExpress. A lot of people seem interested. A lot of people want to see me open this thing up. So we're going to do that as well, show some footage of it being played. But the one thing I got to point out is we do have a palette switch down there. There's two color options. And I'm going to talk about that in a second, but when they ship this to me, it doesn't come with anything at all. Now, you can't use like an NES power supply or anything, or you shouldn't anyway. Typically, I use the Triad power supplies. This is the one that you would want for the Famicom WSU090 1300R. You just got to look up what's compatible with the AV Famicom. Don't just like assume and plug it in. I'm not exactly sure everything that's compatible with an AV Famicom, but don't just like take what you think would work, because you may like mess something up. You know what I mean? Whenever you get like a Japanese console, look it up first. Don't just make assumptions. But this right here is a proper power supply, very high quality, these Triad power supplies. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that. So there's a power supply right there. But I wanted to talk about that switch down here. So this switch, on the listings, they tell you that it's the arcade palette, and then that it's the Sony CXA palette, which is an NTSC decoder palette, from Sony TVs. But like, it has 3 positions. when you switch this. So it's got a front, middle, and back. The middle is just nothing. Doesn't do anything. Whatever you selected, it just stays on that until you move to the next. So the front is the arcade palette, and then the one toward the most, like that way, is the Sony CXA palette. So the arcade palette is actually, a lot of people know it as garish, or I typically know it as Play Choice 10. That's the Nintendo arcade. So Play Choice 10, it's, you know, the official RGB PPU color palettes from Nintendo. And from my experience using this and comparing it to like the Play Choice 10 color palette on the high def NES, it looks very close. Now, obviously, you know, HDMI with this and 1080p versus this with you know, component, or, you know, using RGB with the Rad2X, it's not gonna, visually, it's not gonna be the same. It's not gonna be the same. It's not gonna be all sharp and whatnot. But color-wise, it looks very similar. That was the one thing I was concerned with. But yeah, those are the options you get. And then the Sony CXA NTSC decoder color option. It's a consumer TV option, like I said. I don't have an exact replica on the high def NES, but to me, it looked very similar to the hybrid NES cap color option palette, which was created from like direct NES capture, but the hybrid version uses the FCEUX emulation color, you know, palette combined with the direct NES capture, so it's kind of combined. And that's what I noticed, like between that hybrid and NES capture, it looks very similar to what they're offering here. But that's what you get. You're stuck with those two color palettes. But let me plug this thing into this TV real quick, and then just take a quick look at the way it looks. I'll show some captured footage as well. And then we'll also open this thing up. Look at the mod work. I haven't opened this up at all. I have no idea what it looks like on the inside. I'm a little worried with that. Hopefully it looks good. Okay, so here we go. The RGB modded AV Famicom. Playing some NES cartridges. Super Mario 1. This is the Play Choice 10 color palette. Like I said, it's looking good. No jail bars, no distortions in the image that I'm seeing. And the one way I could instantly tell that this was the Play Choice 10 color palette is, especially in Super Mario, is, you know, when he's got the fire flower, his overalls have a yellow tint to it. And you could see that. But let me change color palette. It's pretty accessible right in the front of the console. Boom. And that's the consumer Sony TV color option. Doesn't look bad. I mean, everybody's going to have their preference, but those are the two that you're stuck with. Those are the two that you're stuck with. But let's go ahead and tear this thing apart and look at the mod on the inside. Okay, so I'm just going to take these 4 screws out from the bottom here. Like the only yellowing I'm seeing is the back. You know, this little plate right here, which I'm not really tripping on, so I don't see it if I'm playing the system. So that's not a huge deal to me. You know, these consoles do get a little yellowing, but overall this is not a bad condition system. You never know what you're gonna get off of AliExpress, so. Hey, no dust bunnies or anything in here. That's good. Oh, we do have some hot glue down there. I think I understand why they did that. It's only on that one side. I mean, obviously they couldn't really reach the other side, but they did that, I'm assuming, to kind of brace it a bit. I mean, I'm not mad at them. It's not a big hot glue mess in there. So I ain't pissed with that. I'm not tripping. This looks pretty freaking clean, dude. Like, I mean, we could use some love back here. There's some dirt back there. If you see, I'm going to clean that up before I put this back together. But back there. Lava RGB, designed in China. So, you know, China there, they got their own little RGB kit. Yeah, that is looking pretty nice. So I don't really want to, because in order for me to get down there, I gotta take this board out. And with that hot glue, I mean, I really like, I feel like I might bend some pins. I don't want to risk it. I think just from this appearance, it looks pretty good. All they had to do was solder, what is it? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 wires. That's all they had to solder underneath. I'm assuming they did a decent job. I'm hoping anyway. It's just 7 wires. Then that switch is connected to this little board right here. Okay. Yeah, so there you go. It doesn't look like a huge mess or anything. I'm going to clean it up a little bit before I put it back together. But yeah, if you're interested, I'll put a link in the description, in the pinned comment, to the listing for this. But I'm happy with it. I'm happy. This is pretty cool. There's, you know, benefits to having a Famicom, you know, if you want to get that expanded audio in some of those Famicom games and whatnot. So that's sweet. Yeah. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Bye.